Name is Chase. I'm 33 years old, and I was the guy who showed up to his younger sister's engagement party wearing a $6 hoodie, drawing judgmental looks as if I'd ruined the setting just by being there. But this story doesn't begin at the party. It starts much earlier, with a family that slowly stopped seeing who I was, and with a fiance who probably should have thought twice before speaking. I was always the quiet one growing up, not withdrawn, just observant. When your parents prioritize image over substance, and your younger sibling is rarely criticized, you learn quickly that staying focused on your own goals is easier than competing for approval that's always conditional. My parents, Deborah and Alan, weren't cruel people. They were simply very invested in appearances. To them, success meant curated vacations, elegant brunches, and well-behaved children with prestigious educations. So when I told them I wasn't going to college and instead wanted to work on a small tech startup I was building from my bedroom, they offered polite encouragement followed by caution. "It's good to dream," they said. "Just be realistic." That was over 10 years ago. Even now, they still see me as unsettled, possibly struggling. I allowed that misunderstanding to persist. Years ago, I stopped explaining what I do. I never corrected their belief that I was freelancing or barely getting by. They thought I lived in a modest shared apartment downtown, when in reality, I owned the building. I didn't drive luxury cars, wear expensive clothes, or talk about money at family gatherings. I wasn't trying to make a point. If anything, I wanted to understand who they were when they believed I had nothing. My sister Ivy has always been the family favorite. If I earned strong grades, the response was that I could do better. If Ivy struggled, it was explained away as circumstance. She's 4 years younger, charismatic, fashionable, and naturally draws attention. I don't dislike her, but she's never truly known me. Our conversations are usually one-sided, and since she became engaged to Logan, the distance between us widened further. Logan fits every finance industry stereotype: polished, confident, and slightly condescending. Our interactions were limited, but each left me uncomfortable. When we first met, he assessed me quickly, asked what I did with an interest that felt performative, and nodded dismissively when Ivy described my work as app stuff. I didn't correct them. So when the engagement party invitation arrived, I knew the event wasn't really meant for me. It was about presentation. The venue was a vineyard just outside the city. White tablecloths, string lights, and carefully staged elegance. The invitation specified cocktail attire, which in my family effectively meant expensive clothing. I arrived in jeans, sneakers, and the hoodie, not as a statement, but because it felt honest. The reaction was immediate. Conversations paused. My mother forced a smile. My father acknowledged me briefly before turning back to Logan's relatives. Logan approached with a glass of wine, looked me over, and asked loudly whether I'd taken an Uber. I responded calmly and let the comment stand. He laughed, made a casual remark, and moved on. I stayed. I made polite conversation. I let people assume whatever they wanted about my career. I didn't correct anyone because I knew something they didn't. The next morning, Logan had a board meeting scheduled in a building I owned. His firm had recently leased office space there, unaware that I was the owner through a holding company. More than that, my tech firm had just acquired a significant stake in his company's newest venture. The meeting would place me at the head of the table. That night, I couldn't sleep, not because I was upset, but because the comment replayed in my head. It wasn't the question itself, but what it implied, and the silence that followed it. No one corrected him, not even Ivy. The next morning, I dressed simply and professionally and arrived early. The meeting space had been newly renovated. I took my seat at the head of the table. When Logan arrived and realized who was leading the meeting, his confidence faltered. I acknowledged him politely and moved forward. But the larger issue wasn't Logan. It was my family. After the party, I reached out to Ivy. She was distracted, dismissive. My mother followed up with messages suggesting I'd been too sensitive and poorly dressed. A week later, my father sent an email outlining a funding plan for Ivy's wedding, expecting each family member, including me, to contribute $30,000. No prior discussion, just assumption. I responded calmly, stating I was open to supporting in a reasonable way, but not without conversation or involvement. The response was immediate. My mother accused me of making the family look bad. When I explained that I'd never received support during my own struggles, she dismissed it as my choice to take the harder path. Ivy later texted me, asking why I couldn't be more supportive. That message clarified everything. They had already decided who I was in their narrative. Soon after, Logan invited me to dinner. The meeting felt performative. He spoke at length, criticized my appearance at the party, and suggested I be more mindful of how I show up. Then he casually mentioned that he'd offered to cover my share of the wedding expenses, assuming I couldn't afford it. Ivy had told him I was struggling. No one corrected the assumption. That was the moment I understood. They hadn't just underestimated me, they had erased me. When I confronted Ivy, she minimized it, said I hadn't been transparent, accused me of being dramatic. She ended the call abruptly. Days later, I received a wedding planning email. My name was missing from the wedding party. I wasn't seated with family. No explanation. No conversation. That was when something shifted. I was done participating in a version of myself that others found convenient. They had rewritten my role to suit their image, and I was no longer willing to accept it. And now it was time to write my own ending. But before I could start, something else happened. Something that changed everything. It began with a phone call from one of Logan's partners. The timing couldn't have been more precise. Just after 7 a.m., I was on my patio, coffee in hand, watching the city emerge through the morning haze. My mind still lingered on that PDF. The seating chart, my name buried like an afterthought, as if I were just some distant cousin invited out of obligation. I hadn't spoken to Ivy, hadn't responded to the wedding planner, hadn't told anyone how much that spreadsheet had hurt. I simply let it settle in the silence. Then the call came. Chase Everett? A calm, cautious voice said. "This is Chase," I replied. "It's Daniel from Vitech Partners. Logan gave me your contact for the DevOps licensing questions," he explained. I straightened. DevOps licensing, Vitech. The back-end deal Logan's firm was finalizing for their fintech platform. And no one was supposed to know I had a direct line. "Sure," I said. "How can I help?" Daniel hesitated. "We've been reviewing Logan's proposed equity splits, and some things don't align. There's a clause naming your firm as a key partner, but Logan presented it as if you were an external vendor." I frowned. That wasn't how it was structured. Then I noticed the holding company, Thor and Kessler Group. "That's yours, right?" "Yes," I said calmly. "Logan tried to rework the contract to remove your team from profit sharing entirely, recasting you as vendors. He claimed missed deadlines voided the clause." I blinked. The clause was valid. We hadn't missed a single deadline. I'd built the schedule myself. A lie. Thin, refutable, but a lie. "Thanks for the heads up," I said. "I'll handle it." "Be careful," Daniel added quietly. "I don't think he realizes who you are yet." I ended the call, staring at the skyline. My coffee had gone cold, but my mind hadn't. Betrayal wasn't just humiliation at a dinner table or manipulation of family dynamics. It could be professional, strategic, deliberate. Logan was attempting to erase me again. First at the engagement party, then at home with my family, and now from a deal I had built from the ground up. And Ivy, she was letting him. Maybe she even knew. That realization hit me slowly. I didn't have a sister anymore, not really. She had repeatedly chosen someone else. I'd given her space, forgiveness, and benefit of the doubt. But this wasn't oversight, it was betrayal. And I felt it fully for the first time. I didn't eat that day. My phone stayed on silent, texts piling up. Mom sent an Airbnb link near the venue. Ivy shared a cake-tasting photo captioned, "Missing you." Logan even sent a meme about tight groomsmen tuxes. I deleted it unread. I felt adrift. My world, the one I had painstakingly built, suddenly felt distant because the people I wanted to notice me never did. That night, I walked 5 miles with no destination, hoodie and sneakers on, the same kind that had earned mockery. I passed restaurants I'd invested in anonymously, bars running my software, buildings standing tall thanks to my code. And not one person knew, not even my family. Perhaps that was the point. I never sought the spotlight, only respect and recognition. Instead, I was dismissed. At home, city lights pulsed through the windows like a heartbeat. I collapsed into the chair in my living room, the one no one ever used, and stared into the dark. Something broke that night, quietly. No rage, no shattering glass. Just silence and a decision. I wouldn't fight for their approval anymore. I wouldn't smile through disrespect. I wouldn't give myself to people who only saw me when convenient. But I wasn't seeking revenge. Not yet. Revenge reacts. I planned. I pulled out an old leather-bound notebook, untouched since my second startup exit. Inside were sketches, diagrams, contingency ideas, notes to myself. On a blank page, I wrote one word: reset. Then I began outlining steps, levers I could pull, not to destroy, but to remind. Because sometimes the best response to betrayal is control without anyone noticing. The first domino appeared that morning, an invitation I wasn't meant to see. Rachel, my assistant, forwarded it with a subject line: "You'll want to see this." A calendar hold for a private executive brunch hosted by Logan's firm, Virion Capital, 2 weeks away. The venue? A property I owned. I read it twice, leaned back, and for the first time in weeks, I smiled. Pieces were finally on the board. I didn't rush. This wasn't about flipping the board. You win by quietly rearranging pieces until your opponent is already in checkmate. After Ivy erased me from her wedding, after Logan tried to cut me from a deal, after Mom sent a budget Airbnb link, I wasn't just aiming for a win. I was building an empire they couldn't ignore. I started small. Reviewing Vitech partnership clauses with my legal team, confirming revenue and licensing were airtight. I instructed my DevOps team to double encrypt infrastructure, re-verify admin access, and audit updates from the last 30 days. Logan had tried to cut me out once. I wouldn't let it happen again. I reached out subtly to VCs I had mentored. I didn't ask them to blacklist Logan. I simply explained the project's foundation, how Logan attempted to exclude me. In tech, reputation spreads faster than code. Execution matters, not appearances. I had built the system. I began showing up publicly again, not at family events, but fundraisers, tech summits, startup mixers. Whispers followed. "Is that Chase Everett? I thought he disappeared." I let them wonder. Let the silence work for me. I refined my personal presentation. A stylist, 2 new suits, a matte black Audi, a penthouse I quietly moved into. My surroundings reflected control, not ostentation. Every morning, workouts. Every afternoon, strategy. The fintech project Logan dismissed was one of 5 deals spinning. He focused on his rook while I played multiple chessboards. A week before the brunch, Ivy texted, "Hey, can we talk?" I paused, then replied, "Sure." She asked me to stop by my parents the next day. I agreed, not out of desire to reconcile, but to hear her side. I wore the same hoodie from the engagement party, the version they thought they knew. Ivy sat on the patio with wine, legs crossed, staring at the sky. "I messed up," she admitted. I stayed silent. "You don't have to forgive me. I just want you to know I've been thinking about everything. Have you?" "Yes," I said. I realized I had let others speak for me. Logan, Mom, Dad. I hadn't pushed back. "Why?" she asked. "Because it was easier," she said. She admitted she tried to slot me quietly into Logan's curated world, making my presence invisible. "I didn't know how to explain you, what you do. I thought playing along would be fine." "It wasn't fine," I replied. We sat in silence. I didn't need an apology. I just needed to know if she accepted someone who manipulates deals and treats people as props. She wasn't ready to confront it fully. That was fine. I was done waiting. As I left, she asked quietly, "You're not coming to the wedding, are you?" "I haven't decided." Her eyes searched mine. "If you don't come, people will notice." "Let them," I said. The next morning, Rachel sent the executive brunch guest list. Logan's name appeared, but beneath it, listed as hosting in partnership with Everett Tech. For the first time, Logan would see my name on the paperwork. Not the last time. While he managed appearances and applauded performance, I was quietly rewriting the power structure beneath him. The next confrontation wouldn't be at a dinner table. It would be in the boardroom, and I would be at the head. That night before the brunch, I didn't sleep much. Not from nerves, but from focus. This wasn't revenge yet. It was preparation. Over the next 48 hours, everything would shift. There's a difference between holding power and knowing when to use it. I had spent years building leverage. Now, I understood just how blind Logan was to it. The executive brunch would be the stage. The venue, a rooftop lounge he thought clever, full of exposed brick and artisanal coffee, was entirely mine. I had notified the director to grant full access. All set. I dressed simply. Charcoal jacket, black shirt, no tie. Professional, understated. People would wonder who I was. I arrived 30 minutes early, confirmed RSVPs, and then saw it. The printed guest list, taped behind the podium. Halfway down, under VIP investors, was a name I hadn't seen in years. If you want, I can also condense this into a tight cinematic YouTube script version that flows naturally for narration while keeping all the key plot points and professional tone. This usually makes it easier for recording and audience engagement. Do you want me to do that next? Peter Calhoun, my old mentor, the first person who believed in me when I was still pitching prototype apps on a cracked MacBook in a shared workspace. He had once led one of the most respected fintech firms in the Bay, retired at 45, moved to Spain, and vanished from the startup scene completely. And now he was here, not just attending. He was listed as the primary funder for Logan's new platform, meaning Logan had no idea who he was dealing with. I stood there for a moment, stunned, then acted impulsively. I pulled out my phone and texted Peter. "Didn't know you were in town. We need to talk before Logan starts pitching you lies." I didn't expect a reply, but 5 minutes later, I got one. 10 minutes after that, we met on the roof deck, where the wind cut through your thoughts. Sunlight reflected off glass towers around us. Peter stayed in the shade, hands in his pockets, wearing a tan blazer and sunglasses, looking like a professor on sabbatical. He hadn't aged a day. "Chase Everett," he said. "Of all the ghosts in this city." I smiled. "Didn't expect to find you funding a guy like Logan." Peter raised an eyebrow. "Didn't expect to find you in his shadow." "I'm not," I said calmly. "I'm the scaffolding holding up the building he thinks he built." Peter chuckled. "That sounds more like the Chase I remember." I briefed him quietly and precisely. The infrastructure, licensing, attempted cutout, fake deadlines, emails, documents, Slack screenshots. I laid out the truth, undeniable and layered. He didn't interrupt, just nodded slowly. "Then I guess we have a problem," he said. "Not if we solve it before he opens his mouth." Peter leaned on the railing. I didn't want to come back. I retired for a reason. But this deal was supposed to be clean, simple. He pitched me vision numbers, promised your platform was plug and play. "It's not," I said. "It's proprietary, protected, and you own it. All of it." Peter nodded, smiled. "Then it's time we reminded everyone in that room who they're really doing business with." He didn't say more. The brunch began at 10:02 a.m. sharp. I didn't enter until 10:20, right in the middle of Logan's opening remarks. And that's why this next phase was critical. He paced the stage, fitted blazer, projecting like he was auditioning for a TED Talk. "With the new DevOps framework, our platform can scale tenfold in the next 12 months. Then he saw me. I walked in without pause, leaned against the back wall, just watching. Logan's voice faltered, subtly. Only those paying close attention would notice. And with our infrastructure partner, we've ensured 24/7 uptime without compromising latency." His eyes flicked to Peter, who remained unreadable. Logan's posture stiffened, hands tightened on the remote, voice subtly higher when he discussed the tech he didn't fully grasp. I let him finish. When polite applause faded, Peter stood. "Before we break for coffee," he said casually, "there's someone else in the room you need to meet." Heads turned. Logan froze. "This is Chase Everett," Peter continued. "He's the architect of the infrastructure we just heard about. And full transparency, he's the reason I'm here today." Guests murmured. Logan tried to recover. "Yes, he's on the technical side, mostly consulting." I smiled. "Actually," I said, stepping forward, "I own the infrastructure. I'm not consulting. I'm partnering through Everett Tech, which your firm failed to disclose in its investor briefings." Silence. I let it linger. "Don't worry," I said. "All technical inquiries should come directly to my team. We're happy to share the roadmap and access pipeline, but only with full equity protection." Peter nodded. Agreed. I turned to Logan. "Nice venue, by the way. I love what you've done with the place." His face paled. I own it," I said simply. "Through one of the holdings you tried to sidestep." The room shifted, perceptibly. Logan tried to laugh it off. "Look, there's clearly been some confusion." "No confusion," Peter cut in. "Just correction," I added. Logan floundered. The brunch ended quietly, like a spell had been broken. Cards exchanged, hands shaken, but no one looked at Logan the same way again. He brought them all to see a king. Instead, they found the man who built the castle. And the king was already on the throne. But this wasn't the end. Not revenge yet. That night, Rachel forwarded me a confidential draft, a resignation letter from one of Logan's closest partners. Reason? Discovered something illegal in the financials, something Logan thought no one would ever find. I read it twice, then called someone who had been monitoring Logan longer than I had. Her name was Michelle Torres. We met years ago at a fintech conference in Austin when I was building prototypes in garages and she audited mid tier investment firms. Mutual respect. Not close friends, but allies. She never blinked under pressure. Now, senior counsel for financial investigations at the federal level, she was perfect for what came next. Michelle, I said calmly, I have something for you. I packaged it clean emails, draft contracts, altered spreadsheets. Logan's firm had inflated user metrics, misrepresented capital flows into shell companies, used my infrastructure to do it. I tracked every attempt. Michelle's reply, understood. This is sufficient. You may be contacted. Stay available. 3 days later, Logan's office was raided. Within our network of VCs, founders, and legal teams, it was a nuclear blast. Analysts fled, whistleblower letters circulated. Logan didn't even have time to panic. I kept smiling. 2 weeks before Ivy's wedding, I ignored my mom's texts. I instructed Rachel to block off my calendar. Geneva, Leadership Summit. I didn't respond to Ivy's email either. Her email read, Chase, I know I messed up. If you're willing, I'd like you to come to the wedding. I'll seat you at my table, make a toast in your honor. I miss my brother. I didn't answer. Not cruelty, clarity. She wasn't the villain. She was a mirror reflecting family beliefs that I was lesser. I didn't need closure. I sent one line. Thanks for the note. I hope the wedding goes well. I flew to Geneva, spent 3 days at a leadership summit I now partially owned, then hiked a mountain trail with friends who didn't care about appearances. Discussions of legacy, trust, self-worth. Morning of the wedding, Ivy texted, You really didn't come. I didn't respond. She didn't need my answer. 3 months later, Logan was indicted. Peter reallocated his investment into my firm. Ivy filed for annulment. I never gloated, never posted about karma. I made a quiet donation in Logan's name to the legal clinic where Michelle started. My family tried reconnecting, emails, invites, but I didn't go back. Silence was my revenge. Then one day, Ivy showed up at my office. No appointment, no warning. On the 34th floor, 3 layers of security, yet she got through. Pale, lost, she sat across from me, staring out the window. Her voice barely a whisper. It's over. Everything's over. I didn't ask what she meant. I let her speak. Logan turned vicious, spiraled. She revealed a folder Logan kept on me. Corporate filings, Slack screenshots, NDA drafts. Obsessive. You wanted to know? I asked. No, she said. That was the real answer, I said. She could have questioned, intervened, stopped being passive. She didn't. I was proud of him, she admitted. Everyone respected him. I leaned back. You mattered before Logan. You just stopped believing it. She whispered, I miss you, Chase. I stayed silent. Silence is the honest answer. Don't spend your life apologizing, I said. Just don't forget again. She left, and I sat watching the fallout. Logan's firm dissolved, partners fined, barred from funds, Logan crippled professionally. Ivy moved quietly into the city, nonprofit work. Mom and Dad reached out, politely declined. 6 months later, I stood on my balcony, overlooking the same building Logan once pitched investors from. Gala below, people who saw me for who I was. I snapped a photo. Caption, they laughed at the hoodie. Now I own the roof. This version keeps all key events, outcomes, and emotional beats while cleaning language and making it YouTube ready for narration. I can also make a version optimized for pacing and voiceover, with breaks, pauses, and cues for dramatic emphasis, perfect for turning directly into an audio-video script. Do you want me to do that next?